Hi, this is Lee from the Law School Toolbox. Today we are talking about 10 things to consider when getting ready for your 2L year of law school. Now, the summer before 2L can be exciting, as it is typical that you are working some kind of legal job or something that looks kind of like a legal job, even if it's for free. So, it's a volunteer job. So, Allison, how did you spend your 2L summer?
Well, the summer before my 2L year, I was working. I was getting paid quite a bit, actually. I was a 1L summer associate at a firm in New York City. So that was pretty awesome, I have to say. I basically just got to pretend that I was a 2L summer associate, even though I'd just come out of 1L. Yeah, so I was a summer associate. I worked there for quite a number of weeks, actually. Made a bunch of money, had some fun, learned some stuff. It was great.
Yeah. But did you go to another firm for your next summer? Or
I
did you go back?
did. So the second summer, I went to a different firm for most of the summer. And then I returned for, I think, 2 weeks maybe to this first firm, just so they could be like, oh, cool. We still like you. You still like us, right? Everybody was great. They were great. I actually really enjoyed the place, but I decided not to work in New York after I clerked. But if I had, that would have been one of the places I definitely would have thought about.
Yeah. Well, I did work for free. I worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Oakland, and it was a very cool experience, partly because you are certified to go to trial. Well, not go to trial, but go stand up and talk about
Right.
misdemeanors. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't really do much, but you can do something. And there's some really valuable lessons about standing up in a courtroom and talking to a judge. And so it was a lot of fun. It was great. I did miss the money making part of it. I did wish that could have happened a little bit more, but I did have a side hustle. I was tutoring for the SATs. And so I did have a side hustle that I did to make a little bit of cash on the side, which I did all that summer too. It was a good summer. I have positive memories about it. Yeah. But it is kind of a bummer if you aren't making money because you might feel like you're working quite a bit. And I think a lot of people end up in public interest or free roles.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think it's very, very rare to have a fully paid actual summer associate position as a 1L. You have to get pretty lucky for that.
Yeah, I did have an offer for one back from the area where I grew up, but they wanted me to basically move back there to work for them, and they were trying to court me back. So I had this big moment of, do I take that job and seal my fate? Or do I take this other gig and work for free and stay in the Bay Area? And you can all see what choice I made. I still feel good about my
Right.
choice. I just still
And I
feel
think
good about my choice.
I do think that's the thing. I think people just got to be realistic about the summer job, but that's not what this podcast is about.
No, anyway. But hopefully, you are working or doing something legal related. And I think when you're thinking about your top 10 things you want to think about for your summer before your 2L year, you want to make the most of whatever you're doing. And that
Definitely.
means building relationships. You want these folks to be your references or write you letters of recommendation. That can be incredibly important. You want to make sure you're being professional. This is really the start of your legal reputation. And you want to think about it that way.
Definitely. I think whatever job you have, whether you're thrilled with it, whether you're not so thrilled with it, make the most of it. You're there. You should be showing up on time. You should be ready to do whatever anyone asks you to do within reason. Be that eager beaver, like, oh, I'm so excited to be here. Even if behind the scenes you're thinking, man, I really wish I was getting paid to dine out at a law firm.
Yeah. But you learned some really interesting stuff. When I was at the U.S. Attorney's Office, there was a huge patent case about dialysis machines, which is not incredibly interesting per se, I guess, unless you're in the dialysis machine business.
Right.
But the attorneys in our office said that it would be wise for us to go watch some of the trial when we weren't busy. And so we did. And I actually really enjoyed watching all of these different, very high dollar lawyers who were flown in from all over the country and to see how different they were, to watch the jury interact with them. My dad was a litigator, and so I spent a lot of time in courtrooms growing up. It was not something that's new to me, but it's a different lens when you are in law school to start seeing what kind of lawyer do you want to be? And it's kind of fun to watch other people in that space. And sometimes in these jobs, you have those opportunities. Don't be foolish and say no, because you never know what you're going to learn from some of these lawyers. I looked these folks up. A lot of them were really at the top of their fields. They would be flown in just for certain parts of the case because they were that specialized.
I think that's so true. I remember that first summer, the place I worked, they had a lot of trial lawyers who actually went to trial. And so they would sometimes take us along, people who wanted to come, if they're like, oh, this hearing might be kind of interesting for you guys to show up to. So we got to go and sit in court. And I think that's one of the main reasons I really wanted to clerk later in a district court, because I just thought it was so interesting.
Yeah. So there are a lot of experiences that oftentimes can come up on that summer, even if you're not making any money.
Right.
So
That's
all right,
water under the bridge. There's nothing
exactly.
you can do.
It's just, it is what it is. Okay. So that was number one, is to make the most of whatever you're doing. Number two is think about your next summer job. That is the one that is typically more important. That is the one that can lead to a full-time job offer upon graduation. So use this time to really network. You may be invited to attend any sort of networking event or an industry event, or your alumni association at your school may have events. It's time to go and start meeting as many people as you can, because these opportunities will allow you to start building the network that you're going to reach out to try and drop resumes here pretty soon.
Yeah, and I think if you can do that outside of your school, that's also a great opportunity. So wherever you're working, there's a pretty good chance you might be meeting people from different schools. You might be able to talk to those people and maybe even organize a little happy hour or something like that, where you bring your friends, they bring their friends, maybe if some upper class people come, if they're working in the same city. When you can be the host like that, it's kind of low cost in terms of time and money if you just organize a happy hour after work a couple of times during the summer, but it could really let you expand that network.
Yeah. Also, you never know what you're going to get invited to. Like sometimes you can get invited to a benefit. Sometimes firms buy tables at
Yep.
things and they're going to ask, do you want to go to this event that celebrates whatever or is raising money for whatever? And even if you don't have the means to give anything, if they need to fill seats at these events, you should still go and fill the seat and be personable, because oftentimes you talk to people in a social gathering like that in a different way than you are going to talk to them at a firm event. So really just try and be open and say yes to opportunities as they come up.
And if you're working in a nonprofit, they may be doing some type of fundraising with rich lawyers over the summer. In New York, there are these huge parties that happen at various points in the summer where lots of lawyers go, but also lots of other people are there. Maybe that is one of the perks of working where you work, is that you get to attend things like that. So you definitely should try to make the effort if you're invited.
Okay. Another thing to think about is honing your interview skills. Some folks will be taking part in OCI, which can sometimes happen at the end of the summer or early into the next semester. But your interview skills need to be on point. And so if this is something that you struggle with, no judgment, plenty of people need to work on their interview skills. The summer is a great time to do that. So you can do that by doing mock interviews. Your school may have some resources. There are even folks like our career coach at our team who helps people do this. But invest time in it, because those are the jobs that are going to make you the money down the road. So you don't want to be flippant. If you need to work on some of your skills, that is not a problem. But the opportunity cost of not working on those skills could be really high.
Yeah, and I think that's something people could even do with classmates. If you have a few trusted classmates, maybe people that were in your study group or something like that, you guys can do mock interviews on each other. Pretend you're the partner doing the interview. Now, okay, you're the interviewee. That's actually a great way to understand what people are looking for. I was talking to a longtime law firm partner on the podcast this morning. We were recording and I asked him, what are the red flags of things that you don't like in interviews? He told me. You can listen to that episode eventually. You can kind of think through that too. Well, if I ask somebody this question, what would be a good response that I'm looking for? Okay, maybe that's kind of along the lines of what I should give. And what are bad responses? I remember I was doing an interview and I asked the person a total softball question. How do you like law school? And I said, I don't.
I mean, it's honest.
It is honest. It is also not the correct answer to that question.
No.
So if you're a person who might be a little over honest, you might have to work on these softball questions that don't seem like they should throw you for a loop, but that is not a good answer, and that is probably not getting you an offer.
No. And can we just take 1 second to say one of our biggest pet peeves is not having appropriate questions to ask in an interview. So that's another thing you can get together with your friends and brainstorm. What are just some boilerplate questions that you can keep in your pocket. Never go to an interview and say you have 0 questions.
Right. And it's totally fine if you all ask the same 3 questions. It
Yeah,
doesn't have to be
it does.
unique.
No.
But you need to have, I would say, 5 to 10, because sometimes you'll find people who are really introverted and they have 20 to 30 minutes to talk to you and they have nothing to say.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to keep asking questions. You're going to have your storyline ready to go. You should be thinking about, what are the selling points of my background? What are people going to hire me for? What are going to be the things that they think are a little weird? All these things you've got to have answers for. So you can absolutely start working on that now.
Yeah. And if you're not even sure what an interview question would be, you can ask our friend Claude the AI, because I have used Claude to create interview questions. And Claude is quite good. Last time I checked, it's been a bit, at coming up with interview questions. So,
Oh, for sure. He'll even
yeah.
give answers. I've gone to Claude before and said, I'm interviewing at a law firm. What are some questions you think they might ask me? And then if there's one where I'm like, I wouldn't know how to answer that, I might ask him, what do you think are some good answers to that question? And he'll just tell you indefinitely.
Exactly. You can get like in a room with a couple friends, a glass of wine if you want to drink a glass of wine, and just brainstorm. But it's going to really lighten your load when it comes to prepping for these interviews, which are stressful in the beginning. I mean, OCI is a bizarre experience if you participate in that, because you just do first round after first round after first round, and it can get really exhausting talking about yourself in the same way over and over again. So the more that you practice and get comfortable with some of this stuff, it just helps you with the fatigue of that period of time.
Yeah, and we have tons of podcasts on this. So if you're not even sure what we're talking about, there we have lots of stuff that, again, you could listen to now and be ready to use when the time comes.
Yeah. All right. Number 4 is to try and make some money on the side if you are not working and making money in a legal job. So I mentioned I tutored for the SAT. I also did a little bartending for parties as another side hustle in law school and during the summer. I mean, these are not going to fill up your bank account forever, but they can lighten the load of not working over the summer and help pad some of your lifestyle. So I do think that it's worth coming up with a plan of how to have a side hustle if you need to over the summer. So that's something else you can do, especially if you're trying not to take out as many loans or be a bit more frugal about how much money you're borrowing. You might need to come up with a plan to make some money over the summer.
Yeah, and it could even be something like babysitting or dog walking. A lot of these are flexible at this point. House sitting, potentially Uber, Lyft, Instacart. There are a lot of ways that people can make some side cash. And if that is something that you need to think about, this is a great time to do it.
All right, number 5 on our list is something we used to talk about back in the day a lot, but I don't feel like we've been talking about it as much, is cleaning up your online presence and like thinking about your personal brand. Because if you don't know it, all of these law firms are going to Google you, and they're going to look on your Facebook, and they're going to look on your Instagram, and I guess your TikTok. I'm not a TikTok. I can't do one more thing. I'm always trying to like spend less time on social media. I can't collect new social media things. But if you are active on all of those platforms, and if you've had a expressive life on the internet, know that everybody's Googling you, and you may want to take a beat and scrub what's out there.
Yeah, and that might take a little bit of time to get it to go away too. So yeah, I agree. Number 1 is you want to make sure you're putting out content that is professional, that is consistent across the board. You don't have a resume one place that says something and on LinkedIn that says something else.
You think it doesn't happen? It
totally happens. Just raises questions that you don't want people thinking about. Oh, I wonder if they're lying about having done this. Not what you want them to find when you go to Google you. So yeah, I think you want to look at what's out there and just really see, what do people find? And if it's stuff that you may not want them to find, you've got to start finding a way to put other stuff at the top of the list. And maybe you start writing some blog articles or posting stuff for your school groups, whatever. It doesn't matter. You just need to push the bad stuff away.
Yeah, I still think Google loves LinkedIn. If you have a solid LinkedIn profile and you are posting on LinkedIn and you're sharing things that are interesting, I think that still pops up pretty frequently when you Google somebody's name.
Right.
At least it does on my algorithm. I don't know about
For
everybody
sure.
else's.
No, for
Yeah.
sure. And it could be something as simple as I'm thrilled to announce that I'm going to be working for whatever. They have a whole
Mhm.
template ready to go for you to be thrilled to announce whatever summer job you've gotten. I mean, it's a little obnoxious, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I
Mhm.
do think people are getting more into that as a social network, as other ones have declined. So you might want to be posting something interesting that you read about in a
Mhm.
class or over the summer or whatever it is. Obviously, you have to think about client confidentiality.
Right.
Do not be posting, so excited to finish this brief on bloody blah with my
Right.
client. Did it? No, do not do that.
No. But I think that it is really worthwhile. My other thing is on your LinkedIn profile, please have a professional looking headshot. You don't have to go
Yes.
pay for professional headshots anymore. You can do it with a nice background on an iPhone, but make sure it's not the like party.
Yeah. If somebody's cut out
That's,
beside of you
I
at like a
know.
frat
I mean,
party. No.
you think it doesn't happen, but I still see it. I still see it. Or you are in law school and it's like your graduation picture from undergrad is on there. Not a great look. You think this stuff doesn't matter, but the people who are reviewing these profiles are typically much older than you are. And they're not going to think that is as appropriate because it's a different time. The folks who are evaluating your work were in a much more professional time where photos on professional websites, you were in a suit and, you don't have to be in a suit. You just need to not look like you're at a party.
Yeah, you just need a nice background, decent lighting. Your hair is not doing anything crazy and a
Yeah.
reasonable
Not
looking
a
outfit,
baseball hat. Like
Yeah.
just,
Just
yeah.
something that was like, yeah, that person looks like maybe someone I could consider hiring. They look pretty
Right.
professional.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So after you spend some time working on your LinkedIn profile, I think it's a good idea, tip number 6, to spend some time doing informational interviews. We talked about networking, but I think informational interviews, which is also something we've been talking about for a very long time, is an underutilized way to learn more about the landscape of the legal field and jobs that you may be interested in.
Yeah, I have a very long ago post that we can link to, actually, series of posts on the Girls Guide to Law School, some of the first content I ever wrote,
Hmm.
but still useful, actually, about how to set up and conduct a really good informational interview. But people are very willing to talk to you if you reach out in the right way, typically, and not everyone. I mean, if you send 10 requests, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 people
Yeah.
respond at all, maybe like 3 or 4 people agree to meet with you. But even that's several more people than you previously knew.
Yeah. And even just work your own network. I think sometimes we forget that even in our own circles, there can be people who can help you with this sort of stuff. I have childcare that works for me that goes off to graduate school, and they'll be like, "Do you think you could write a letter of rec?" And I'm like, "You have no idea how good I am at a letter of rec." And then somebody will talk to me and say, "Oh, I didn't know how to prep for this interview." And I'm like, "You know what I do for a living? I could have prepped you for that interview." Utilize the resources around you because they don't always need to be legal. They can just be folks in a professional environment. If you want to practice doing some informational interviews, you could do it with anyone who has a corporate job. Get comfortable doing it. Use a template, ask questions. It just makes everything easier. We were talking about having your standard questions that you have to have at the end of the interview. I think the informational interview is the same thing. The more you do this, the easier it gets, the more comfortable you get in your skin.
Definitely. And I think having curiosity is really the key here. So sometimes people, they'll have their 10 questions they want to ask in 30 minutes and they're just rolling through the questions. They're not really listening to the answers. But when you really start building that relationship, you might only ask 1 or 2 starting questions, but then the person says something, you say, oh, that's really interesting. I'd like to know more about that. And you do a deep dive into whatever it is that they're saying. And they feel like you're a great listener and you're actually learning something. So I think sometimes people have the idea, like, okay, well, I did it. Well, what did you take away from it?
Mm. Yeah.
Was it actually helpful for you? Did you learn something? Did you make a connection? And it's just a way of thinking about how to approach this differently.
It's true. And I think by getting a little creative sometimes with who you are doing some of these interviews with, you can sometimes ask for feedback, which is hard to do in a legal setting. Oftentimes you will do an interview and you may or may not get feedback. You may or may not want to ask for feedback. But let's say that it's someone in your circle, or you're going to interview just someone in corporate America, or you're just trying to practice these interviews. It's vulnerable to do it, but you may want to ask for feedback because you may be doing something that you have no concept that you're doing that some people might think is obnoxious.
Yeah, I think that's a fine line. You have to be really pretty comfortable with that person and they have to be
Yeah.
willing to be honest. But say it's like the parent of a childhood friend or something who
Hmm.
really does know and love you, but also realizes that you have an annoying tick.
Right. I mean, sometimes these things we really don't know that we do. It can be sometimes good if you're in the right situation, it's the right person to get a little of that feedback because it can be hard to know. And when we get nervous, we do all sorts of weird things.
You can also videotape yourself, which is painful, but very useful.
It is painful as we do this video podcast and
Right.
I
But I never look
edit.
at the video.
If I have to edit it, you're going to make me edit this first. I know. And then I'm going to have to look at it. Fine. It's fine. I mean, we've moved past judging ourselves on video, so it's fine.
Yeah, but I do remember one of the firms or something I worked at, they brought somebody in to film us, and I just remember being mortified by this. I was like, I am so terrible at everything I'm doing, which was not true, really. But when
No.
you see it, if you see yourself on video skiing and suddenly you slow it down and you're looking at all these things, you're like, oh, that looks awful. But nobody notices it when you're just skiing.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, one tip I will say from Zoom interviews or informational interviews is if you have a tendency to look at yourself and fix your hair like this all the time. I have interviewed people on Zoom where they are clearly checking themselves out the whole time. And it's weird and distracting. So
Yeah.
you may want to cover with a post-it note. If we use the software where we're like side by side, you could just put a post-it note on your face.
Oh, you may not be aware of this. I literally drag our photos off the screen so I can't see them.
Oh,
I'm not
that's
watching
cool.
myself. I'm also not
Oh.
watching you.
Well, there you go. I'm watching you, but I just like to talk to you and look at your face.
Yeah, I find it
Right.
distracting. So you can
Yeah.
always just pull yourself off. I'd say that an interview is a little different because you probably do want to see at least how the other person's reacting, but you can typically minimize yourself if it is distracting, which it often is.
It is. I will tell you, I've been shocked at how easy it is to tell somebody's doing that. It's really
yeah.
bizarre. Yeah. It's not a good look. So that's another thing you want to be aware of. So these are reasons why you have to practice and you have to be aware that if you can see yourself on Zoom, it's going to be awkward. And so you have to just come up with a solution. Don't say I can't be on video. That's not a good solution. Cover yourself up with a post-it note.
Well, the other thing I would say is if you think you're going to be doing virtual interviews, you may as well go ahead and think about what is your lighting going to be? Where are you going to set up? I mean, that can be a big deal. I mean, do you want to get an external camera so you look better? All these things. Ideally, you want to have sorted out before, again, somebody asks you to come and do an interview the next day. So you're not running around being like, oh my gosh, I don't have a background that's appropriate. These are things that you can solve over the summer.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so we've talked about your brand, we've talked about doing informational interviews, and now we're going to talk about money. I know nobody likes to talk about it. Number 7 on our list. You need to spend some time checking in on your finances. Maybe you've worked and made some money to pay some stuff off. Maybe you haven't and you feel like you're deeper in debt. It doesn't really matter what the reality is. You still need to take a moment and see where you are and make sure that you're not paying high interest rates on a credit card or paying late fees on things, or you haven't not canceled subscriptions that pop up, whatever it might be. You just want to kind of audit your finances before you take a bunch of loans for another year.
Yeah, I think just that check-in. Okay, does all this make sense? Is it all necessary? Are there ways that potentially I could make some money and reduce some of these other interest costs or whatever? Because right now, I think credit cards are like 30%, which is pretty crazy.
So crazy. I know. I just saw what the amount was because my credit card got canceled because it was fraudulent, like stolen. But, they send you the notice again and I don't carry a balance, but I was just like, oh, it's like terrifying to see. It was like crazy. 29%.
Yeah, it's terrifying. Like literally crazy. I was just like, wow, that would really compound very quickly.
Yeah.
So definitely do what you can. Obviously, law school is expensive. Most people are taking out a ton of loans, but do what you can to make sure that you are spending your money as you wish.
Yes. Okay. Number 8, we were just talking about how you're likely going to be starting to interview. OCI may even start over the summer for some schools, but you need to take some time to work on your resume, your cover letter, your writing sample. If it's not in good shape, you need to spend some time with it. And please don't leave it to the last minute. And please get it proofread by basically everyone who will read it.
Yeah, you don't want to be the one who uploads your resume to some portal that's going out to all these different hiring people and then realize you have a really egregious typo. Just not a good look. Really not a good look.
No.
Lawyers are very picky. The formatting
Yeah.
needs to be perfect. It should be a PDF. It shouldn't be a Word doc. All these things. You want to make sure that you're really putting your best professional foot forward when you start looking for jobs. And other people can help you do that. So let them do it for you.
Yeah. You need a friend. You are that friend for me who can tell when the bullet font is different.
Oh, God. I can tell an italicized period at this point. That is an
I
insane
know.
thing. No one should be able to see that, but I see that. I'm
I
like, no,
know.
Lee, there's some problems here. You're like, I don't know what you're talking about. But then when it's fixed, you're like, oh, that does look so much better.
I know. And then you've turned me into that person because now other people send me things and I'm like, the bullets are different sizes.
This comma is italicized and the other one's not. You're
It's
just like,
terrible.
oh my God, we are crazy people, but we are lawyers. This is what you get trained for.
Yeah. And you were like on the law review and they turn you into this person on the law review. Even if you have these tendencies before, it gets worse. And the thing is, if you're trying to go work at a big firm, everyone was on the law review.
Yeah.
Everyone was looking for this stuff. We were trained to look for it.
I could never tell you that before I was on law review, but they blew it up to like 14 times the normal size. And then you can see that that is definitely an italicized thing that should not be italicized. We got to fix that right away. The world will end if this comma is italicized. We can't publish the article. I mean, it's absurd. It's totally absurd. This is why I hated law review. But it did make me a person who notices that now.
Yeah. And there is just something to realizing that it's the presentation of yourself in writing. You worry about what you wear to an interview. You worry about all these other things. This is how you're presenting yourself. And it may feel a little vulnerable to ask friends and family for feedback, but trust me, I really hate it when we get a resume that has not been put together well. I just find it insulting to myself because it's a waste of my time. I just don't like it. It's not going to go over well.
Well, and also you have to understand that people reviewing these are assuming this is the quality of the work product that you will put in front of clients, you will put in front of judges. And it's like, well, would I want a client to read that? Nope. Okay, no, I'm not hiring that person.
Yeah, that's so true.
Sorry.
So if you don't know where to start, talk to your career services office, get some help, reach out to us. We can connect you with someone on our team. But just floundering around and not doing it's not a great solution.
No, it's got to be perfect. All of that has to be perfect. I mean, I'm sorry. It just does.
It just does. Okay. So now that we've fully stressed you out about OCI and getting ready for jobs, and then we've talked about your finances and you're stressed about money, don't forget to take care of yourself. Tip number 9. You've got to prioritize self-care. Maybe you found your self-care really went in the toilet during the school year. I mean, it happens, especially with finals and things like that. So the summer is a great time to get outside, spend time with other people, try to get back to your hobbies, whatever you need to do. I think that it's just so important. Move away from the laptop and the phone. Oh my goodness, I'm reading the Anxious Generation book, which everyone is talking about. And it is such a good reminder of just how much we get from socializing in real time with real people. When you can get away from your laptop and your classroom work and your books, be face to face with other people because we get a lot out of it as humans.
It is a very stressful experience that you're going through. And 2L year is likely to be very busy. So the more that you can get back to the things that you feel nourish you and make you a person who can cope with things, so much the better.
Yeah. All right. And tip number 10 is you also have to take care of life tasks. Summer is a great time to get your tasks in order. So maybe you're moving, get your home life set up. Maybe it's the best time to go to all those doctors and dentist appointments that you've been pushing off, the eye doctor, maybe you need new glasses. But this is the stuff that you want to deal with over the summer, as long as you can either do it in conjunction with your job, or maybe you'll get a bit of a break between work and school starting. But make sure that you do knock that stuff out, because they always say 1L, they scare you to death. 2L, they work you to death. 3L, they bore you to death. Well, 2L is intense. I worked more hours my 2L year than I think I did in my 3L year. And I was pretty busy because I was under the law review in my 3L year. Totally different.
My 3L year, I was like, wow, this is like a vacation compared to 2L.
2L was so much work, and you're taking really intense classes and you're doing all this job stuff. And you might be taking on leadership positions in clubs and things like that. It's a lot
Journal
of
work.
Journal work. It just really adds up. Make sure that everything you can do over the summer gets done to lighten your load and automate as much of your life as you can so you don't forget about stuff when things get busy. Remember the 29+% on your credit card bill. Don't miss a credit card payment. Automate
Plus
that
late
stuff.
fees.
Oh, late fees. Just
Don't forget.
automate that stuff. It's just so much easier. Just don't do it. Life is expensive, but the only people who win by you not paying attention to that stuff are banks.
Yeah,
And
it just
they have
pains
plenty
me.
of money. I
It
know.
pains
They
me
don't
to
need
even
my
think
money.
about you giving your hard-earned or hard-borrowed money to a bank because you missed a credit card payment and now they're charging you all this stuff. It's just like,
I know.
oh,
You
no,
just can't do
just
it.
don't let them win that game.
Don't let them win. It's just like writing dates down and automating payments so things don't get missed. It really is as simple as that.
Yeah, but you have
Yeah.
to do it. So yeah, anything you can do to set yourself up for success in this very busy upcoming year, I think go ahead and do.
Yeah. I mean, have some fun. Enjoy the summer. Get yourself set up. And then 2L year will be busy, but you'll be set up for as much success as you can come up with.
Busy but productive. All right.
Exactly.
Well, everyone, thank you for watching and please subscribe so you don't miss anything. And you can check out lawschooltoolbox.com for help from our tutors or our career people.